All right, folks, today's a special day for the conversion show because one of the top questions I get asked personally is, having been in the Shopify ecosystem for 10 plus years, one of the first questions I always get asked is, hey, what's the trick? What's the deal with the Shopify app store? And, anyone who's in this world, today is the show for you, because you have combined 20 years exactly of Shopify App Store experience between Blair and I. I just looked it up. March of 2013, Blair and I first emailed each other. And Blair,
Yeah.
So today's show, you saw the title, you know who's on here. Blair Beckwith. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Erik. I was looking today too, and I was thinking back. I think that we met in person maybe that summer in San Francisco. It was one of my first trips as a Shopify employee. Shopify was so small back then. I barely had budget for a hotel. I remember staying in the Tenderloin and meeting up with you for lunch. You had a little office, and I think I want to call the financial district. Is that what that area was called?
Yeah, we moved offices every year.
Yeah.
For a while.
Wow.
And yeah, we were probably on 2nd and Mission.
It was a little bit more like corporate building. It was a little bit more modern. It was on a non-ground floor. I remember taking an elevator. I remember walking with you to go get sandwiches down by the water.
That was really kind of impress you, huh?
Yeah. It was, man, it's a long time ago.
I do have to correct you because you said it was early days as an employee, but technically, weren't you an intern?
By that point, I had graduated to full-time employment status. No, yeah, I started. Yeah. We can get into all that. We can get into all that for sure.
It's funny. I'm trying to remember back the earliest memory and talking about budgets. Shopify didn't have the budget for a hotel for you. We've always, Justine has always been that way. At IRC in Chicago, Shopify didn't have a booth forever.
No.
And same with us. People ask how'd you grow, Justino early on. It's I would get a Expo pass under Travis's e-com store, social skateboarding, for $75. And I would go to every single technology partner's booth and meet with back then it was biz dev people. That was the title, to try to get into their app stores. That was the entire game.
That is that's still the greatest hack that exists. If you've got friends or anybody who run a store that will let you buy a pass under their name for some of these events. It's hey, do you want to spend $50 to come as a brand, or do you want to spend $2,000 to come as a vendor? It's still works.
And then you invest in stickers, and you put the sticker over the badge. So if we're talking about growth hacking, let's talk about the years of growth hacking in the Shopify App Store.
Things have changed. Yeah, for sure. You mean growth hacking for apps like Justino in general? Yeah, man.
It's obviously it's different now, but I felt so bad for you for so many years because I knew the politics you were dealing with. It's as soon as you start hitting a certain level, the politics are huge. So let's go back to the days of when everyone is hounding you for featured positioning, or hey, how did you deal with that?
No, for sure. There's probably a lot to unpack there, and I should probably talk to my therapist instead of you, right? It's it was fun. It was there were parts of it that were fun, there were parts of it that weren't. As you say, kind of eventually as a company grows, you end up in more of a political realm naturally, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't think politics are inherently bad. I think they're just part of work as a business grows. But pre-politics, it was a lot of just flying by the seat of your pants and making sort of gut instinctual decisions. And I think that has probably bled into who I am today. Even like I often laugh when I talk to people and say like I'm not the most data driven person in the world. I came up in a world of like limited data in the App Store. We didn't have a data analyst that was helping me make decisions. I had like access to a shared data analyst, and I was the bottom priority for any reports that needed to get made because the App Store didn't make any money, right? But it was when I was making decisions about who was getting featured and who wasn't, and who should be in the App Store and who wasn't, it was a lot of like more instinctual. Okay, do I think that this is going to be good for brands? Is this going to be better than the solutions that already exist? Is this like attacking the problem in a new and novel way, right? I think like that's so much a part of working at a startup, and Shopify was a startup at the time, right? It's just like, how do you operate in a world with limited data, because the data is so rarely there.
Let's go back to 2013. For listeners that aren't aware, pull up LinkedIn, pull up Blair Beckwith. You'll see that, Shopify wasn't always what Shopify is today. And what was the environment, what was the team structure? How big, do you recall how big Shopify was back in 2013?
In 2013, I would guess it was probably about like 150 to 200. I joined in early 2012. So when I joined, they had just closed on the acquisition of an agency that was like 20 people. And that got us up to 100 people. So when I joined, we were like between 80 and 100. And at that point, we were like at least doubling headcount every year. So jumping from 2012 to 2013, 200 is probably reasonable. I don't know if you can hear my cat in the background. I'm sorry about that. If that's a thing, maybe we can cut that in post, well, Kevin.
I literally just hit mute on mine because I've got two dogs here and our dog walker just showed up. So it's going to get
It happens. It happens.
Anya, we may need to do a pause.
No, that's all good.
That's the life of today.
Working from home. Yeah, no, and it was, it was a massively different environment. I think even like how I got started at Shopify was just like a thing that wouldn't be possible in later years, right? Like you made a comment about me being an intern, and like, yeah, I became an intern before there was like a formal intern program. I became an intern because I emailed Toby and said, hey, I hate school. I want a job. Can you give me a job? I'll work for free, And that was like, that worked in 2012. I don't know if that would work in like any year after that. Right.
That's something I always respected about you when I first met you, because you were still in intern status, I believe.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. But I learned more in college through my internships than I did in college.
Yeah.
And in 1998, I interned at Left Field, one of the first online like interactive agencies were like taking Hotmail banners and bringing them down to like 13K. But everyone around me was a history major, Dylan, Erik, like no one studied what they were doing in college. And when I asked, what should I do? The advice was, dude, web design is the future.
Yeah.
It changes your perspective and gives you access to people at company like Toby directly, because hey, they want to help you grow too. So big learning lesson, I think, there, period.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm like, I've got a 2.5-year-old now. I've got I shouldn't say this because like half my family doesn't know, a lot of my friends don't know, but I got another one on the way.
Is this big announcement?
Big announcement. Please hold off releasing this until like at least a week after we record, so I have a chance to tell people in case my grandma's listening.
You heard it here first.
But yeah,
and I do a gender reveal in our follow-up episode.
I can tell you right now, it's gonna be a boy.
As my friends called it, it's like the lottery.
Yeah, 1 and 1. It is nice to get the full spectrum there. But no, anyways, like we're talking about like saving up for school. Like that's a thing that you do as a young parent. You put aside some money for your kids so that they can go to school. And I mean, we're putting aside money for, but I don't know what that money is going to be spent on, right? Whether that's university or like a coding boot camp, or by then, who even knows, maybe there's going to be like prompt engineering boot camp so that she can like wrangle AI to do her bidding, right? Like, who knows? We don't know how that money is going to be spent, but I think it's almost a certainty that it's not going to be spent on something like a traditional college or university degree. It's because I do think, yeah, just the spectrum of experiences now that you can gain outside of that environment is just like so incredibly wide compared to even really just like 10 years ago when I went through.
Yeah, experiential education's
Yeah.
invaluable.
Yeah.
Like, we're starting to see that shift here too, in terms of like vocational, like skill set. Just as Shopify announced, I saw Good Morning America, they really kind of did the first interview I've watched about the, no more than 2 people in a meeting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was speaking about, look, it's all about building a company, and to build it, you have to be building. It's like, if you're building a house, you need to be putting up walls, putting in wiring. You can't be meeting half the day about doing this work, and that's where meetings kind of have gotten in the way.
Yep.
And
Yep.
It's an interesting time we're in right now today in, what is it, August 2nd, 2023, is that with just doing ourselves, as we look at the Shopify app store and generating leads, and we ourselves have really pared down and gone back to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really interesting looking at our own business and top of the funnel and product-led growth and what that means. And for Travis and I to still be in the driver's seat, it's been actually kind of a fun 6 months getting back to the basics of what got us here. And so timing, talking about, and even our goal today is talk old school Shopify app store, but can you just share real quickly where you are today? Because I was checking out your site, and I do at some point want to talk product-led growth and freemium and pricing, because that is critical to the Shopify app store.
No, for sure. And I think we can talk a lot about history. I think we can talk a lot about growth in the ecosystem today. And that's sort of the lens that I have today, is sort of growth in the ecosystem. I mean, really short version of what I did post Shopify was like consulting and startups, right? I did like a lot of consulting with SaaS vendors in the space, investors in the space, and then did a couple sort of tours of duty full time at startups. Today, I am head of e-commerce at a company called Tidio. We are a customer experience platform for SMBs. I would guess that we have actually a very similar story to Just Uno. We launched in Shopify around the same time, maybe a year later or so. I think it was 2014. We are cross-platform. We've got an absolute monster of a user base, but we are a little bit below the radar. We're not necessarily focused on the sexiest direct consumer brands out there. Our core is just real meaningful businesses, no matter where they are, whether that's Shopify or elsewhere. I mean, e-commerce is really big for us, but we do more than e-commerce. We do real estate agents. We do regional telcos through Europe. We have a huge range of customers, but sort of as head of e-commerce, I focus largely on Shopify, and I work across our marketing team, our product team, our support team as I'm driving some initiatives forward, but I'm also just the voice of Shopify, sort of, actually, in a lot of these conversations, and helping the product team kind
of Shopify.
The voice of Shopify.
That's going to be the title.
Oh no, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
So,
but yeah.
It's crazy being in this ecosystem for so long is, when we started, how many, what, 100, 200, 300? How many were in the App Store in 2013?
In 2012, it was 60. 60. It was 60. Yeah. It was a very different time.
What is the number now? Do we even know?
I think we're up nearing 10,000, if not over 10,000. And that's after a lot of pruning, right? Shopify has been fairly aggressive in getting rid of apps over the years.
Can we talk? Let's dig into that because
a spicy topic to start with.
you know, and I out of respect for Blair, I held back a lot in reaching out, and anyone who runs any app store, I feel for you.
Yeah.
But you know, us being just, you know, one of the first, you know, into the market, and watching, you know, companies from, you know, just straight rip off our product.
Yep.
Which is more of the Magento world. You get a lot of overseas brands, and that's why I respected. We invested in a Shopify because there was that care of Blair in there to curate and make sure,
as well as I could,
as well as you could. You can't do it perfectly.
No.
So in my time, I think maybe 2 brands I've seen publicly kicked out of the App Store. You know, we've got reviews just like Amazon, critical to the how you get displayed.
Yep.
How have you seen, what's the inside, you know, what were you aware of at the time, and what did you struggle with?
When it comes to sort of like the curation angle specifically?
Yeah. And people cheating, and people cheat, you know,
people do.
You tell me Privy has that many reviews?
Well, it's funny, right? There's like, and I will say I'm, you know, very good friends with some of the Privy folks. I do like them.
Ben's awesome.
Ben's awesome. There's like a whole spectrum, right? When it comes to cheating versus not, right? And you mentioned Privy, like there's no way they got all those reviews. Standards have changed. What is cheating and what isn't cheating is sort of increasingly less black and white. If I recall correctly, Privy was one who collected a lot of reviews through like their onboarding process, right? This is like a very common thing to do at one point, was like merchant installs app, help them get set up, ask them for a review, sometimes even word it in such a way that it was implied that leaving a review was part of the onboarding process and they could not proceed without leaving a review. Right? Like this was a thing that happened for a long time. It's obviously like not the best user experience. I think we struggled for a long time to figure out how to make rules that were unbendable, or like make rules that covered cases like that, right? It's very easy to make a rule that says you cannot buy reviews. It gets murkier when people say, what does that mean? What does it mean I can't buy reviews? That's like not as simple a question as it seems at first glance, right? There's situations that everybody would agree with. Like if I go on Fiverr and there's a listing that says 100 reviews for $300, that is, I think everybody agrees, buying reviews. If I offer a Starbucks, yeah, like if I offer a $20 Starbucks gift card to every customer that leaves a review, is that buying a review? I think like most people would agree that that is buying a review. If I say leave a review and the App Store will have a link back to your store, which will give you SEO benefits, is that buying a review? You're sort of like, you're not even offering something, you're just telling them that there's a benefit to them leaving a review. I think like that's the type of situation where you get like incredibly murky, and it's like very hard to come up with rules that have very clear lines, you know?
Well, and as we look at fast forward to present day, when there's a sea of 10,000 apps and our listeners are trying to understand, how do I get exposure? You know, looking at Tidio, I'm looking at your pricing page, and it reminds me of our old school model, which we're doing a lot of review on right now in terms of, you know, bringing the product led growth, freemium really to the forefront. Is I always viewed our free plans as a marketing play, because more often than not, it's the freemium or very small SMBs that are going to be more willing to write a review.
Yep. No, I was
still
just
true.
Yeah, I think it's still very true. I think there's a couple of dynamics there that are relevant too, right? Like I think you guys are similar to us. We have like a live chat widget that on our free plan says powered by Tidio, right? And you, I assume on like pop-ups have like something similar probably there, like powered by Justuno. So like free users have like an inherent benefit there. They're sort of like, they are billboards for the service, which is awesome. But then, yeah, the review side is also big. We had this conversation internally just this week, right? We've been sort of taking our foot off the gas of like review acquisition efforts for a while. And now we've got some of these like smaller, yappier competitors coming up, getting a lot more reviews. And so now we got to take this a bit more seriously. And that's something that we've talked about is like, what is the value of a free user? Well, if they don't leave a review, not much is the answer. And we need to leave them a review. I think one of the less intuitive ways that we've shot ourselves in the foot that I think people could probably learn from is like, we do not offer live chat support to our free users because that's expensive. It's expensive. There's so many free users. They're typically the most demanding of support. But how do you get reviews?
Yeah.
You provide them really good support. And so we've actually, by not offering our free users live chat support, we've actually deprived ourselves of a lot of potential reviews from those free users. And so you got to balance those two things.
So the Shopify reviews Slack channel here at Justuno is one that always gets me because it'll be active and then I'll pull it up and it'll be like 6 months since any like activity on. I'm like, the Shopify app listing to me is, as you look at, growth of a business, it is, I view it as the number one billboard, and do you want to, if you're driving down the freeway, do you want a digital dynamic billboard that's constantly being updated or just the old school flat one? And more often than not, we are guilty of it still to this day of overlooking the value of embracing that app listing.
Just out of curiosity, and I mean, I know that I'm not here to interview you, but I'm curious, this might help like frame the discussion a little bit. Like, how much of Justuno growth comes through the App Store versus like non-App Store marketing efforts for you guys?
What I can tell you is it's dropped significantly every year for the last 5 years.
That's the way it should be, honestly. Like, I think that's like we're similar, right? Like that's us reaching maturity. I think like for a long time it was a goal actually for companies like us to actually like diversify growth away from the App Store.
So one thing I learned, at SearSnowboard.com, which just blows my mind today, is happening, are apps that are 100% built upon Shopify. That scares the hell out of me. Because Shopify owns your business at that point. When any vendor owns more than 70% of your business, they own it.
Yeah, this is a conversation that, I mean, and we can just flip-flop throughout this conversation talking about back in the day versus today, right? This was a conversation that I used to have all the time talking to app partners. I wouldn't say I was completely in line with sort of the Shopify party line on this, but I used to say to companies like Justuno, like, I actually want you to build on other platforms. I always want to be your favorite platform. I want you to prioritize building on Shopify above all else, but I want you to build on other platforms because it is not healthy for you to have 100% of your business on Shopify. That makes you like an unhealthy business. And if I want you to serve our merchants well, you need to be a healthy business. And so go and build on BigCommerce. Go and build on Magento. At the time, it was go build on Interspire. Go build on Volusion, right? But it's but I always want to be your favorite.
Yeah, it's so amazing how Yahoo stores owned the market in 2012. And then BigCommerce was the big one coming over from Australia. Volusion. I mean, so it has changed. You've had to diversify. It's also why you move upstream. But also I think what we're seeing this year is an interest now that e-com's has some more tailwinds. It's been a year of headwinds.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing the SMB kind of come back.
Yeah.
Start,
Yeah.
their MarTech stack shrunk. Now they're looking to expand.
Yeah.
One question I had for you was this, talking about the politics is, going to Unite and all the events, it was always like our partner ecosystem is critical to Shopify.
Yeah.
And the App Store was the first app store to make it true one-click install.
Yeah.
BigCommerce tried to launch it and said they did, but
it
wasn't a true one. It took them years and years to figure out. And that's what allowed Shopify really to skyrocket, is how they allowed the accessibility to all of these technologies to grow their platform. That was hands down what changed Shopify and allowed them to leapfrog everyone else.
I certainly want to think so.
Without a doubt, because we even see it. You see people that come in, they'll add multiple apps to see which one's best.
Yeah,
and that's where time to value is so critical. With your app, because you have to understand, put your mindset in that of a retailer. You're going to the app store. You either a partner maybe told you about it, a friend, or you're just searching in the app store for a specific need. That's the other thing, understanding the user in the app store. What is it, like 80% of it is people typing in a specific use case to solve a problem?
Oh, I mean, honestly, yes. If you wipe out the 80%, at least for us, I'm sure you're similar actually, where like there's by far the biggest percentage is people coming to the app store and searching for Tidio or searching for Justuno by name, these kind of like branded keywords. If you wipe out those, I imagine like somebody like your number one keyword is like pop up, right? Ours is live chat. Like they know exactly what they're looking for.
And so they're presented with multiple and God, that's when Blair gets the email from me. Hey, why is someone coming up before me when they're searching for me? So, with that, let's talk about something that's affecting companies like ours within the Shopify app ecosystem today. It's kind of a new thing. Recently, Shopify has begun to enhance their core product offering. And in some cases, it competes directly with some of their app partners. Talking with other founders, this is creating anxiety and concern for founders trying to build their company. They're wondering, is Shopify going to build my app next? Which isn't necessarily fair or the whole story, but it's this view that I talk with people that, Shopify is almost cannibalizing their own app partner, looking into their app store, figuring out what's successful and then building it themselves. So as a former Shopify app store manager and current app partner, what's your take? Like how would you help reduce anxiety and address this, from your perspective?
I think that's a relatively cynical take. No, let's get into this because this is a fun one. And I got to be like a little bit careful with what I say, because I got lots of friends there still. I don't agree with everything that Shopify does. I've been gone from there for 6 years now, though. I'm not, when I have a disagreement with something that they do, I try to understand that that disagreement is coming from a place where I have imperfect information because I've been gone for 6 years, right? The world has changed. The ecosystem has changed. So I'm always open to the idea that if I disagree with something, there's very good reasons to still do it. You say cannibalize. Cannibalize is a fun word because it's a very, I would say, pardon to the cannibals out there, but I think there's a certain negative connotation with the word cannibalize.
What did I say? I don't even remember.
You said that Shopify is like increasingly cannibalizing their partners, right? And I think that's a complaint that I hear a lot. I don't think that it's, first of all, I tell people as a rule, don't worry about that. When you see what Shopify has released over the years, they're releasing some really interesting products. But when they are competing with partners, they're releasing very interesting, very limited products, right? Like, even if we go all the way back to, I think, one of the first examples of this, like, it's hard to believe that there was a time when Shopify didn't have a shipping product, but there was a long time where they didn't have a shipping product. And then they released Shopify shipping, and it doesn't compete with any of the big shipping players, right? Like, it's a very simple sort of label printing operation. And sure, it's grown since then, but I think, like, in my opinion, the main takeaway here is really like, if Shopify enters your space, they are going to enter your space with a solution that actually solves a big problem for you. They're going to take on a lot of these brands who you actually don't want to deal with because they've got no budget for a solution. They're a big support debt. They're going to drag down your business. They might make your charts look nice because, like, up and to the right on the install chart, but they're not actually meaningful for your business. And so Shopify is going to take those away, and that might make us a little bit sad, but it's probably for the best. The other thing they're going to do is they're going to shine a big spotlight on this as like a job to be done, right? You think of like that as from like a problem standpoint. There's like a lot of people who are not really like aware of all of they're not like me and you. They're not thinking about all of the different ways to grow their business. They don't know that it's actually really easy to set up a pop-up on your store to collect email addresses. If Shopify releases a tool to do this, all of a sudden, everybody who uses Shopify knows that that's a problem to be solved. And when they try Shopify's like admittedly limited solution, they're going to run into some edge case, and they're going to look for a problem or look for a new solution to that problem. They're going to land on Justuno, right?
I thought you said you weren't interested in politics, because that was a phenomenal answer.
Well,
and it's true,
it's
as
true.
Shopify has always put their customer, the retailer, first. They've always said, how do we make it easier for our retailers to be successful?
Yep.
And I think my comments are just what I've seen over the years. I've seen recently it kind of pick up, and it creates anxieties. But on the other side, look at what you said is 100% true. We love that the word pop-up is understood now. When we launched Justuno, we were laughed away. They said, I don't want to do that. Why would I show it on my site? Fast forward, 14 years, there's still so much opportunity to improve the technology. And so when you want, that's why, just like with your companies, it's as we move upstream, these small ones pull you down, they're cost sharing. So if we can allow, for us, like Klaviyo, they've been really moving into the pop-up space. Now they're moving to CRM, and it's like, great. They make the word pop-up synonymous with e-commerce, with websites, so that it is 100% adopted. And then let's pick up the top end and work with that.
Well, and that's another great example, right? Even like outside of Shopify, of like, and I mean, I don't know this space intimately well, right? But like, I do know that, like, if we look at Klaviyo, it's funny, just as like an aside, I don't think there's any company that has like captured a problem space as effectively as Klaviyo has for email marketing, right? Like Klaviyo and email marketing, especially among larger brands, like effectively synonymous in this ecosystem. Where Klaviyo is like not as synonymous with SMS. And so there's like, Klaviyo has an SMS product. There's a ton of Plus brands that use Klaviyo for email, but not SMS. Klaviyo pop-ups, not a good solution for those customers, right? Because they want to be able to collect SMS, and they want to send those phone numbers to Postscript. They want to send those phone numbers to Attentive, wherever else. And so even there, I think it's, like you say, a really good example of like Klaviyo releasing pop-ups, ultimately a good thing, makes it synonymous, and also still leaves like, makes like it a ubiquitous term, like, right? It's like this pop-up idea, but also leaves a ton of open space for you guys to add value. And I think that's like just it's super important. I don't know how much these platforms are thoughtfully leaving these gaps, right? And they're doing it to be pro partner. I don't know how much that is true versus it's just like inherent to the strategy. Because that's the other thing that I tell companies too, right? Is like whether you're like 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 people, like if you can't compete with Shopify with their hundreds of priorities, there is like 100 products being built inside Shopify every day. If Shopify was to put together a pop-up tool, they're going to throw a product manager, 2 engineers, and a designer at it. And like, if Justuno can't compete with that, then maybe we just pick up our ball and go home. You know, it's we see this with Tidio and Shopify Inbox, right? I love that Shopify Inbox exists. It's a great product, but we are nearly 200 people at Tidio, and all we think about all day is building the best live chat and CX platform. Shopify Inbox can't compete with us. They can't. Like, they're a small team inside Shopify. They don't get a ton of resources. We're going to build a better product than they are.
So that gets into best of breed, which is kind of what we internally, what we made a decision a couple years ago. It's like, do we build email and SMS, you know, or do we double down on conversion and innovate? That's the other thing, is that, you know, as we grow these companies, we get caught up in operational. You mentioned 200 people. You know, there's a lot of operation to be had, and you know, it introduces product-led growth again. Of like, are we pushing the limits with technology? And it's, you know, someone starting a company right now, you advise different companies, and we're hearing that it's hard. It's getting a lot harder. And it's scary. And I think it is the politics. It's that communication of Klaviyo, of Shopify, to say exactly what you just said a few minutes ago, of like, hey, look, this is how our view of how this, in, you know, present day, how we think the healthiest way for everyone to continue to be successful. And so it does bring in then the freemium model. If you're in the Shopify app store, why would someone use your freemium product when the consolidation of your tech stack? I mean, digital marketers are managing 20 plus apps right now.
It's too much. You know, I think that's like, it's like a very interesting segue from like best in breed to like that problem, because I feel like it is a fork in the road for companies like ours, right? Like, you have to, in my opinion, do one of those two things to survive in this market today, right? Is like, you need to ruthlessly focus on one thing and become the absolute best in breed solution with a few features that the customers that care about having the best in breed tool for that problem will buy, right? I often say, right, like, it's something like, take like a Justuno versus Privy thing. Like, they can have 99% feature overlap between the two products, but it's like that 1% difference that is going to make the sale for the best customers. And so you need to win best of breed if you're going to go that strategy, or consolidate.
Well, so then on the other side, and this is what the market is you have the big players, the Klaviyo, the Shopify, HubSpot's notoriously bad for this. Of, they need to show growth too. And they need platform adoption. They need to get, you know, clients stickier, and they know they can get away with plugging in an inferior product, which will keep keep customers on and at bay. Like HubSpot, we use their knowledge base and their live chat, and honestly, I think it's trash.
But it's good enough.
It's good enough, and it operationally, like, it's getting us through. I know we're missing deals because we have an inferior live chat product.
Well, you should check out Tidio, but no, I'm joking. No, that's definitely a thing, right? I think like the consolidation in the space is necessary, because, and this is something that I think maybe is tough for tough for some people to hear. I hope I don't lose friends over this. Everybody cares about having best in breed tools for different areas, but nobody cares about having best in breed tools for everything, right? Like if I'm a brand, there's 20% of the jobs to be done that I have that I want best in breed tools, and my friend has 20% that he cares about having best in breed tools. But I bet there's like very little overlap between me and my friend. There's a ton of jobs to be done for a brand where good enough is good enough. I'm trying to think of like a good example here. Like, I mean, I worked with a reviews platform for a while, and that was something where like there's a lot of brands that just don't actually care all that much about the reviews platform, and that's okay. There's companies that are just starting out with SMS marketing, and I mean, I don't know at this point how advanced Klaviyo's SMS offering is. Maybe it is best in breed, but let's just assume it's not. Klaviyo SMS, good enough. It's not worth, each of these tools has like an added cost, and it's not the financial cost, it's the cognitive load cost, right? These brands are small teams, and there is like, I mean, I think it's a very common, I don't know what the word is, but like you have to be 10 times better to displace an existing solution. And a lot of these solutions that are best in breed, I think, frankly, are not 10 times better. And the good enough is good enough.
And even if they are, you have to showcase that value.
Yeah, you have to tell the story about it in a way that people care about, right? That's where I think I've never said these words before, so this is like a very half-formed thought. Feel free to push back. But like, I think when people hear product-led growth, they sort of like hear product and then they forget about the growth. Like, you can't just like build a great product. That's like, there's more to it than that. You need to like also build like a very effective story around that product, because you need to show the value, and people aren't gonna dig for the value.
So I heard product-led growth, the term, about 6 months ago. And, there's terms are thrown.
There's always a term
thrown around all the time. And I was so focused, and finally I was like, a month ago, I was like, my wife mentioned to me, like, it's all about PLG right now. And I'm like, I pulled it up. I'm like, oh yeah, we've been doing that for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like we had a always free plan when we launched on Shopify in 2013. But what's healthy about it is it's all about just reinforcing and inspiring us to keep going and adapting to present day. And layered on top of that is a lot of like Donald Miller stuff, which is like understanding your customer and their needs. And there's the other side of it is emotional buying. Is how is this going to help me as a professional look good to my team? And that's where the value comes in. ROI is value, but it's like, if you use this, here's the weekly report we're going to email you of the success you've brought to the team by implementing this product.
It's so funny just to hear that like PLG is the new term, and you're like, we've been doing this forever. And it turns out like freemium, I guess, just isn't as sexy a term anymore. So we got to rebrand freemium as PLG.
So I love your going back to your pricing page. I think our most successful time in the app stores is when we had our entire platform broken into add-ons. And you have add-ons right now.
Interesting. Yeah, we're thinking about this quite a bit right now, because I mean, full disclosure, I think that our pricing is a little bit confusing, and there's a lot of conversations. I think the add-on model can be a little bit confusing, and I don't know what the best answer is, but that is where we are right now.
Well, with Tidio, I mean, literally your add-ons, it looks exactly like ours. And the number one reason we switched off this was agencies were like, this is way too confusing for us to set up for our clients. But it gets, it's all about breaking down your customer base and understanding for us, 80% of our customers are just want to do lead capture. They're experiencing stale list growth. Like, what's the next best thing I can do? And like with Photoshop, everyone uses a different 10% of Photoshop.
Now I think that's a very real thing for us too. And like you mentioned HubSpot and like the good enough problem, right? Like we take a bit of inspiration from HubSpot, right? I think HubSpot has built obviously I think anybody who says that they wouldn't love to have founded HubSpot and led it to whatever valuation they're at is lying, right? They're like an admirable company. But I think
We've been customers of them for like 8 years.
Yeah. I think they are the kings of good enough product. And I mean, I want to build better than good enough product, right? Like I want to build great product, but we also think that there's reason to consolidate. And we started off with live chat, then we launched ticketing. That's like a very different thing. It makes sense to do this sort of add-on model. We also were like early in on like what we call chatbots. This is like a confusing thing right now because like what we call chatbots are more like sort of like a choose your own adventure through a conversation. That's what chatbots used to mean. Now, of course, with AI and everything, the chatbot term has been sort of co-opted. And so like that makes our pricing maybe a little bit more confusing because we now have like an AI powered chatbot called Lyro that is like out there as a feature. And so, I think pricing is, I don't think anybody's good at pricing. I think pricing is just like so hard across the board. There's no good answer for model often. And then within that model, I mean, price point is then like the next decision. And I think if anything, most companies just don't do enough experimentation there.
So my brain is just teeming with everything you just said and thinking back to the Shopify app store.
Yeah.
Here's a hard question for you.
Hit me.
Is the Shopify app store dead for new?
I hear this narrative all the time. I have been known to get into the odd Twitter spat. I maybe lurk Twitter too much. I maybe say the wrong things sometimes. I'm a bit of a Twitter addict. I see this all the time. I mean, short answer, no. Long answer, like, depends how lazy you are, right? Like, I think if your goal was to build and launch a barely good enough product and then are we allowed to swear on the show?
Sure.
Do fuck all to market your product and expect Shopify to hand you growth on a platter, then the App Store died in like 2013, 2014. There were people who made a lot of money by building a barely functional product, releasing it, doing fuck all to market it, and having Shopify hand them growth on a platter. That was a thing. It's become less of a thing over the years. I say it ended in 2014. Honestly, I think that was probably the state of things until like 2016, 2017. And then it started to drop a lot. Like things have really fallen off a cliff recently. Like it's no longer if you build it, they will come situation like that. Those days are so long gone. And I think it's funny. There's a lot of things that sort of come together, I think, to create this narrative. There's like, I think some of the get rich quick folks sort of got their hands on Shopify as a concept a while ago, both on the brand side and the developer side, right? On the brand side, that manifested as like all the drop shipping courses from all these people telling brands or telling regular Joes and Janes how easy it was to make money through drop shipping. On the developer side, some of the and I definitely don't want to paint with any like broad strokes here, like some of the less savory and creative aspects of like the indie builder sort of segment, who wanted to just like spend 2 hours building an app and then release it and get thousands of dollars a month in revenue forever.
That one still drives us nuts today, is that Justino is one app.
Yeah.
You get in, it's a full suite of what we could break into 20, 50 100 different apps.
Yep.
Is that still, are people, I mean, essentially what you're saying is, what people need to hear is that you can't just roll out a not better product right now and think you're gonna make money.
No, I think that's I think that's true. And I don't think the one app versus many apps really has all that much to do with it. I think it's more just like the quality bar is just much higher. I mean, I used to sell developers on the idea of building for Shopify by telling them, like, take a few weekends, crank out an app, like make it super simple so your support debt's not high. You don't really need to do much marketing because we'll feature your app and then you'll get some reviews and then that'll get the organic flowing and you'll be good, right? This is back in the day how we talked to developers about it. And now you see some of the the developers that are starting today and or I shouldn't even use the word developers. The people who are building on the Shopify platform today that are seeing success are like in a couple camps. There's like this guy, Gil Greenberg on Twitter, who you should check out if you care about this stuff. He's like an approximately one-man shop. I don't know if he's hired anybody recently, but he's building like a 100% Shopify app called Checkout Blocks. And he is just like, he is building like an impeccable product. He's meeting and he's even like elevating the quality bar now. And he's not cranking it out over a few weekends, right? He's building this like full-time job for a year to build like an absolutely brilliant experience. That still works. The App Store is not dead for him. The other segment is like the whole like massively VC funded crazy product of the last few years, zero interest rate phenomenon companies that have just raised a bunch of money, have built really great teams. They're building on Shopify, but they're generally not building through the App Store or not distributing as much through the App Store, at least organically, because it's just there's not that much to do in the App Store as like a massively VC funded company. If you wanted to spend dollars to grow, which is what you do when you raise that much money, there's just not that many places to deploy those dollars, even with ads and everything in the App Store now.
That was a really interesting update when they launched the pay to play in the App Store.
Yeah. Interesting is the word. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, interesting. Well, help weed out.
Yeah.
It's like, and we're willing to pay and invest. And now, now we're in the beta for their latest.
The homepage ads.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how much those cost at the end of the beta. We're in it too. I haven't seen a bunch of crazy results from that, but no, I think a lot of people hated on ads when they came out, but I think it's like fundamentally a good thing.
Well, and they backed it up with the 200K kind of give back, which but of course Shopify Plus kind of knocked that out for us because we were then had to pay the full amount for the first 200K anyhow.
Yeah, you're like you're like a Plus certified partner.
We were one of the first 10.
Nice.
What's so cool about Shopify is their ability to embrace partners like ours to do beta programs.
Yeah.
And I think, I think what's really needed is, and what we're kind of doing today is taking an assessment of where we are today. What has the App Store evolved to? What are the positives? How do we continue to be successful? And mentioning Gil and Checkout Blocks, that is true product-led growth, where he's building something that he's probably listening directly to other retailers to figure out what problem they have that they need a specific focused fix and solution. Secondary thing though that alarms are the updates to Shopify checkout and then locking that down. How does that affect them? And also the risk, and this just goes into the communication. I think maybe Shopify could work on is don't be there's a lot of risk to founding a company, and there's more fear today to start to invest resources because of A, competition, B, the market and consolidation of technologies spending, but C, whether or not your partner is going to become a frenemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of risk right now.
Yeah, for sure. Right. I think you can generally like lump that under like what the cool kids these days call platform risk, right? And I don't mean to diminish it as a factor. I think it is something that everybody should think about, but I think you are far more likely to die because you didn't grow than you are to die because Shopify killed your business. And I think like that's where I think like anybody that started a business on Shopify, selling to Shopify brands like through the App Store over the last like 10, 12 years has like, I mean, I threw this example out on Twitter last week or something. It was what was it?
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. It's X.
Sorry, X. Got me. No, there was a Shopify. It was Shopify's native product bundling that got announced last week. And I just use that as an example of tweeting out like, I literally 10 years ago, people would ask me, I want to build a product bundling app for Shopify, but I'm worried that Shopify is going to build it. And I would say, don't worry about that right now. The people who took that advice had 10, 11 years to make massive amounts of money selling their app on Shopify. Some of them did, like Bold, for example. Everybody knows Bold. One of their first apps was a bundling app. I don't know the numbers, but I expect that app has made millions of dollars over the past 10 or 11 years. Those apps are still not dead because you can compete with Shopify on stuff like this. But even if they were dead, you just had 10 or 11 years to make a ton of money through selling your app. I think those people did okay by not worrying too much about platform risk and not using platform risk as an excuse to not build.
Well, you have to be empathetic to Shopify as well, in a sense. We mentioned when we first met, it was Yahoo Shopping owned the market. Magento had the biggest floor space at IRC. It's like Shopify has to evolve to hold their position.
I think that's something that I think people don't think through properly before they criticize Shopify with some of the things that Shopify gets criticized for, especially by partners these days. You hear a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure you feel this way often, like Shopify's not the partner they used to be. I don't get any sort of personal attention from Shopify anymore. I think that people don't think far enough down the chain of like what that criticism means or what the alternative to that criticism is. Like Shopify has 10,000 partners now. It is literally impossible for Shopify to pay personal attention to every one of those partners. It cannot be done. The extent of the personal attention would be you asking for something and them saying no, which is not like the basis of a healthy relationship. And so, yeah, I do think like it's hard to say that, this like $200 billion company, whatever it is now, deserves our empathy. And it's not necessarily that they deserve empathy. I think it's more just like, this is the natural way of things. It is unavoidable. They are really big now, and it's not 2013 anymore. Unfortunately, as much as I wish it could be, right? Like I remember partners having babies and them texting me pictures of their babies, right? That was sick. I loved having those relationships, but it was a relationship between like two little startups.
How we know it's not 2013, and something that I love is that Shopify is talking about conversions.
Yeah, it's been really funny to see how Shopify has like started to change their language and how they talk. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I laugh a little bit when you get McKinsey or whoever to look at your checkout and say it's the best. It's really easy to sit here and laugh, but No, it's like they're playing a different game now than they were.
But, you know, and going back to me as a partner, I'm thrilled by it.
Yeah.
Because they're helping educate their retailers of how important conversion is, which for us, you know, we've been doing, you know, trying to shout the top of the roof about it, and no one cares. You know, finally, people are starting to take a look, and it's going to take the vision of Shopify to educate these retailers. So it's only going to help our business if people actually are focusing on it.
Yep. I think that is the healthy approach. I think like it's another sort of it's another asterisk on is the App Store dead question, right? Like the Shopify App Store will not die if you are willing to like adapt to the changing relationship you have with Shopify, the changing dynamics of the Shopify ecosystem. If you can sort of just not expect the world to stay the same around you, then I think it will like always continue to be, it'll continue to be the best place to distribute your tech for the same. I mean, you sort of alluded to this earlier, right? Like, because Shopify has always done what is best for their customers, for the merchants, right? Like that's like, I mean, not always, but in the context of like this conversation and like product and technology, they have always, I think we can confidently say, done the best, or done what they thought was the best. And that's what keeps the App Store, even if those decisions might like hurt an individual partner's scenario, like situation or experience, it is like still ultimately beneficial because it helps the platform grow. It puts the merchants there. It gets them to the App Store to look for the solutions that we're selling.
What pops in my head is Shopify Plus, which I thought it was the greatest move to open up their code base, because, you know, our experience as retailers, why we shifted off of this Counterpoint software is because if we wanted to change to our product page, it took 3 weeks to get a quote. The quote was 10 times what it should be, and it was going to be 3 months of time. We're like, can we just have access to the code base? They're like, no, it touches all these other stores. You can't. And that Plus, you know, allowed them to listen to their customers and adapt. And that's another game changer for their company.
Well, and like if there was an agency involved in the mix on the other platform where these changes couldn't be made, and when they could be made, they were super expensive, I bet that agency would be really pissed, right? If the ground shifted under them and stopped them from being able to charge a bunch of money. But it was like the pro merchant decision, and it worked out better for everybody. So even if it was short-term painful.
Early, we you know, Justino got early into the Shopify App Store, first 50, and whatever it was. First into Shopify Plus. Where is the present day first?
I hate you for asking this question, because like I don't know that there is an answer I would rather give than what is now the super cliche answer, which is like the AI stuff feels really huge. Toby did a partner AMA yesterday, and I sort of I asked in that about Sidekick, which they just announced, which is their AI powered assistant inside the Shopify admin. And I just sort of like highlighted to him like, sounds a little bit like something you used to have called Kit that some of us remember from back in the day. And one of the coolest things about Kit was that like it could not only sort of have an understanding of what was going on inside of an app, but also be able to like take actions inside of that app.
On that note, with Mike Perry, have you tried Maple yet with your wife?
I have, and based on like the state of, for example, my kitchen, I should probably try it again.
I haven't tried it yet. He posted that he's looking for some users to beta test something, so I think I need
we could use some organizational help for sure.
You just mentioned Toby's What was that session? I need
that was on Twitter Spaces. It was yesterday. That would have been August 1st. If you go back and look through his tweets, anybody who's listening,
I gotta
maybe
get on
Erik.
X.
Yeah, sorry, X. Yeah, X Spaces. It almost sounds 18 plus.
The mentioning that, that they've done a lot of updates, headless we won't even go into.
No, oh please.
I think building deeper into the actual interface, pulling it, getting built into Shopify itself, the admin seems to be.
Well, and that's something that, from what I understand, I'm trying to think if there's anything in here that hasn't been announced yet that I probably shouldn't talk about. There's things that were certainly announced, like there's like new abilities to embed inside the Shopify admin. I forget what the feature is called, but you can now you can appear not only just as like an embedded app, but you can like add UI controls into various areas of the Shopify admin in a really interesting way. It's honestly like not too dissimilar from something we had ages ago that I think was called app links or something. But there's recently been new ways, like recently, like in Shopify editions this past week, new ways to embed yourself further into the Shopify experience. And I think that is really interesting from like if anybody's been following like the built for Shopify program, where you have to meet certain additional requirements to get a little badge and be eligible for different promotional opportunities and stuff. I think that has interesting implications for that. I think that's another really good example of like why, is the App Store dead is a bad question, right? It's like
a horrible question. I'm such a bad interview. It's more of, where is it?
No,
it's what is today. How do you be successful today?
Yeah, no, it's actually a good question from like interview standpoint. I think it's like a very good conversation. I think it's a bad question to be asking like on Twitter from a position of, I'm mad and sad that this isn't easy anymore, right? I think it's a whiny question from a lot of people. I don't think it's a whiny question from you. Yeah, I think it's just another good example of that. Like, as Shopify kind of increases the surface area of like integration opportunity, that lets us build more embedded, more interesting experiences, but those experiences are inherently harder to build because there's more to build, right? And it's and I'm not a developer, right? So like I don't know how much work any of this actually is. People smarter than me take care of that, but
well, you're still in the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm still in the game, you're still in the game, Tidio's still in the game, Justuno's still in the game. I think that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is like time in the game. Just living to fight another day. I think of it like there's like the common investing advice, right? It's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And I think like that is like so much of life is like, if you just play the game such that you can keep playing, eventually you will win. It's just important to not die. And I think me and you and our companies have both probably done a pretty good job of not dying. And so that is something to celebrate and probably bodes well for our futures.
Well, I think, in 10 years working together, this last 10 years have been a fascinating time for a lot of people. And, we got to remember that the e-commerce world is still new.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's still so much opportunity out there.
There's so much.
So much.
So much.
What's kind of cool too is, being 10 years in, looking around, we're starting to see a lot of the people we grew up with the last 10 years, where they are, how many people have their own companies, like Dov has Tolstoy.
Yeah.
It's like,
very cool company.
It's so cool to see. It's also awesome to see like Toby and Harley are still driving.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I think like I think that's something that Toby talked about in this AMA yesterday. I think was just like really interesting, right? Is like the one of the really great benefits to being a like founder-led company in these later stages is that like founder-led companies typically have the ability to like pivot very quickly, right? Like you see this even with like the Zuck over at Meta, right? Like he's able to, I mean, for better or worse, he's able to plow billions and billions of dollars into VR and then flick a switch and pivot to AI when that's the next hot thing, right? And I think like saw this with crypto, right? I think like a lot of founder-led companies very dumbly leaned into crypto too hard. I think it can be good and it can be bad, but yeah, no, really, really awesome to see like Toby still steering the ship there. And Harley, I mean, Harley was my first kind of sort of real boss at Shopify, so I'll always have a special spot for him.
Well, seeing him out on the road so much right now,
yeah,
working with retailers, like going to them,
yeah,
he's kind of inspiring me also why I do the podcast, to try to get connected, to really understand what retailers are going through.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that like Harley rather is probably one of the all-time greatest like storytellers and hype men for companies, right? Like I think that like almost any company would feel very, very fortunate to have anybody even remotely like Harley in that position. Watching him do the roadshow stuff and being in front of people is definitely like very special.
Well, we've gone over time.
Of course we have.
You're a special guest, Blair.
I appreciate it.
Well, who knows if anyone's still listening?
Who knows? We'll see. Yeah, we were kind of a little bit all over the place there. I hope there was some nuggets here. I mean, I didn't even ask you whether most people listening to this were app developers or brands. Probably a bit of both, I imagine.
Well, we're like year 2013 with the podcast, so I don't have those demographic data.
I love it
completely.
Who needs data?
Yeah, who needs data? What I can tell you is that a lot of people are still trying to navigate the Shopify ecosystem.
Yeah.
And even just, it's so good to talk about this stuff. I'm inspired as I need to start sitting in on those partner summit things.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something that I think is like, I mean, I've thought about this from like a content production standpoint, is like my question of like, is the audience was mostly brands or mostly partners? I think is like a valid question for like content strategy at large. But I think one of the things that I have noticed and appreciated over the years is like a lot of the merchants on Shopify who are very into Shopify as a platform, and they care a lot about a lot of the partner facing content. They want to know what's coming down the pipe. They want to know how apps are thinking, what apps are building. I think there's this like, we used to talk about sort of like 360 partners at Shopify, like partners that do a bit of everything and care about everything. And I think there's this like concept of like a 360 merchant too, right? Who like, they are like super interested in their tech stack and they are always trying the newest tools. And so I think there is like a substantial amount of overlap in what sort of content is interesting to those two groups. And so I hope there was something here helpful for whoever was listening. And you can send your feedback to my Twitter DMs if you hate anything I said. I don't check them, but no, I do. I'll read it all.
Blair, what is your X handle?
My X handle is just Blair Beckwith. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do this. Me and Erik didn't talk about it, but
do whatever you like.
If you are interested in Tidio, go check out tidio.com/friends. That's it.
You can plug all day long. Anything that Blair is involved with is probably something awesome.
I appreciate it, Erik.
So please check it out. More coming down the pipe here at the Conversion Show, so definitely subscribe as well. And let's thank Blair for today. Hope everyone enjoyed, and take care.
Thanks, Erik. Cheers.